Hi, welcome to my latest video. Tonight I'm going to be trying to film part 2 of my LED bulb series. It's a bit light at the moment because the clocks have now changed and it's now British summertime, but I'm hoping sooner or later it will be dark and I can actually show you what these various bulbs look like in my headlights. In part 1, the last video, I looked at the theory, the chemistry of an LED, what is an LED bulb. I even did some horrible maths to work out how we could measure the brightness in lumens using a lux light meter. Don't worry, there won't be any whiteboard lectures in this video. I'm going to put that away over here somewhere. We won't be using that today. But what we will be doing is looking at various headlight bulbs, okay? So I've bought a lot of bulbs here. I went onto eBay and Amazon and went down to Halfords and I bought lots and lots of different bulbs. Lots of LED bulbs. I've also got a couple of element bulbs there which I may throw into the mix just to give us a comparison. But these LEDs I'm expecting to be a lot brighter than traditional bulbs. As well as main beam and dip beam type bulbs, H7 bulbs that I've got here, I've bought loads and loads, I mean loads, of brake and side light bulbs. Okay, so most of these are for the rear, but those ones in the box there are the Ring Premium, which are for the side lights at the front. I've actually already got those fitted in, okay, so we can look at those, compare those against the sort of standard element side lights. That'll be in part 3, and I've also got here fog lights, front and back, reverse lights. That'll be a part 4. Part 5, I'm going to look at indicator bulbs. So I've got regular bulbs there, the tinted ones, plus LED equivalents, and ballast resistors, which are needed if you want to convert the indicators to LEDs. Otherwise, the computer thinks the bulbs are blown and it flashes them twice as fast. Okay, and then in the final 6th part of this video series, I'll be looking at other bulbs, okay, so number plate illumination and bulbs in lamps under the mirrors and things like that. This video is going to be looking at main beam, okay, and a little bit about dip beam. I've got more bulbs in this bag here. These are the ones that I used to run in my main beam, and these here are the Philips Ultinon Pro. Okay, so these are what I fitted in my dip beam. Okay, so recently did a headlight upgrade video and I've changed my headlights for these projector types, and I've gone against everything that I've previously said and I fitted LED dip beams. Okay, now in the past I've always discouraged my viewers from doing that, mainly because it's an MOT failure, and hang on a minute, it's a bit windy tonight. Okay, so hopefully the wind noise is not going to cause us a problem. Right, and yeah, so these bulbs here are the Philips Ultinon Pro 9100. I don't know if that number means anything. It might be just a number. They do a sort of a 3000 and a 5000 and a 7000, and these are the 9000. I've got a sneaky suspicion that the 9100 is actually the lumens for 2 of them. Now this is something to be aware of. When we buy these lights and they have a lumen rating, so these ones here for example are rated a ridiculous amount, like 20,000 lumens or something. If you have a look at the kind of small print, you'll find that that's actually for 2. It's a little bit like with axle stands. When they say they're 4-ton axle stands, they're actually 2-ton and they come in pairs. Okay, so we've got two here. These Zethors were 20,000 lumens, but it's 10,000 each. Catur and the Auxitos, these were also recommended by my viewers. These are 16,000, but that is for two. Okay, so do sort of be a little bit careful if you are buying LED bulbs. You have to sort of read further down the listing on Amazon or eBay and see what actual figure they are for the bulb. There is also a bit of sort of specmanship going on, so different eBay and Amazon sellers try to sort of outdo each other a bit by exaggerating those lumen figures. So that's where this light meter comes in. Okay, I'm actually going to measure it. I'm actually going to prove or not the ratings that they're putting up on these listings, sort of wild claims of incredibly bright bulbs. So what is this lumens figure all about? Well, the lumens is really a measure of the light being emitted out from a bulb or a light source. I'm calling them bulbs, okay? Somebody did say to me, "Ooh, they're lamps, they're not bulbs." Bulbs are what is underneath this tulip, okay, in the ground. These are technically lamps, not bulbs, but everybody calls these bulbs, so I'm going to call these bulbs, okay? So just bear with on that, okay? I've always called them bulbs. I'm going to continue to call them bulbs, but these do not have a sort of glass vessel filled with halogen gas, and it's very, very different with LEDs. Okay, so I did a sort of a little whiteboard drawing in part one showing what is a light emitting diode, how does it actually work, and yeah, it's completely different to old style bulbs. Okay, so old bulbs, traditional bulbs, element bulbs, were usually rated by watts, the electrical power. The more current the bulbs drew, the more electrical power they consumed, the brighter the bulb. And that all worked very well until the sort of xenon gas discharge lights came out, which were much brighter but only about half the wattage, you see. So this whole wattage thing wasn't really kind of working as a rating. And then LEDs came out. It was super efficient. They hardly draw any current and they give out stacks and stacks of light. So the whole wattage thing, you just can't use it with LEDs. So another unit was required, and that unit is lumens. Okay, Pit Lane Kitty's out here. She's cross because it's a bit windy, but she's been chasing some leaves. And I've got the tripod here. Pit Lane Kitty's going to help me do this, and we'll see how much her eyes light up with these various bulbs. If she's not keen on that idea, then I will use the light meter here, and we'll sort of try and read a reading. Now, the magic number that I came to with my calculations the other day was 97 centimeters. Okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about there, go back and watch part one. I worked out that if you put the light meter 97 centimeters from the light source, so that's kind of the bulb, but is probably this fisheye lens, because that will do things to the beam of light. Okay, so then 97 centimeters out from that, and there's probably about 10 centimeters behind this plastic here, so 87 centimeters from there out to here, then you technically can read the lumens on the light meter as lux. Okay, and I did try that at the end of part one, and it sort of was a bit hit and miss, but it was kind of in the right ballpark of the bulbs that I've got in here. These are about 4,500 lumens, and I was getting 4,500 to 5,000 lumens on the or lux on the light meter. Okay, today I'm not going to be doing anything with dip beam. Okay, all of tonight's testing will be with main beam, and there's a reason for that. I bought all of these bulbs when I had twin H7s, I've now got H7, H11. These are all H7. Okay, those are H11, but those are element bulbs. So they need to go in main beam. I will literally take the bulb out of the dip, and I'll also disconnect the side light as well, and I'll disconnect the other headlight so that we've only got one light source, not all sorts of other bits of light coming in. When I was trying to measure it last time, I had my head torch on, we had a light under here, the street light was on, there was a solar light on the wall here. It was reading all over the place, so I've got to wait till it's nice and dark later, and then just one light. And then what I'm planning to do is get that light meter and somehow sort of kind of like elastic band it onto the tripod so that it's held exactly the right distance away, and then I can measure the lumens of each of these bulbs in turn. Now, just as a sort of extra calibration step, I looked on the Halfords website. These bulbs in here at the moment are element H7s. They're the Halfords 200% bulbs, and they actually list the lumens for them. It's 1,450 to 1,650. Okay, so let's sort of go in the middle there, 1,550. Interestingly, Osram night breakers that everybody loves and goes on about, they are 1,500 lumens. Very, very similar, slightly lower than the Halfords 200%. Now, these here are also 200% bulbs. We've got the Ring Pro, and we've got the Lucas, the Lucas Light Booster. Okay, now I did test those in a previous video. I actually tried those against the Halfords ones. Didn't really see any difference. I also did a video on the Philips Racing GT200 bulbs, which looked identical to the Halfords bulbs, and the light output, colour and brightness was exactly the same. I would go as far as saying that they are actually made in the same factory, because they looked exactly the same. So this bulb here is a Halfords 200%. That is going to be roughly 1,550 lumens. So we can actually use that to sort of calibrate this light meter thing. I didn't really need to go through all the maths and work that out. All I have to do is put the light meter on here, get that sort of at the right level, and then just move it in and out until it reads 1,550. Okay. Once we've got that sort of benchmark, so long as this doesn't move or get kicked about, then I can then carefully get in there, pull out the headlight and put each of these in one by one, and then we can compare them. What we're really looking for is a sort of relative comparison between them. Okay, so we've got different Osram ones here. These say off-road use only. These are probably off-road. These ones, I think on Amazon, it says something like off-road only. I'll try and find a picture of it. Off-road only, and then a bit further down it said lighting the road ahead. So yeah, a bit of a contradiction there, but we've got those. I don't know what the difference is between these. You've got two Osrams there. This is the XTR, whatever that means. Could mean anything. Could be less bright than these ones. It looks like the heat sinks are slightly different shape. These actually look awfully like these ones. Look at that. Look how similar that is. Virtually the same, actually. So I'll get those out in a bit. We'll have a look. And then we've got these Auxitos. Now, something very important with these bulbs. These ones. Now, let's have a look here. So let's start with these ones. Now, these ones come with a special pair of gloves. I don't quite know what that's all about. They're sort of like magician's gloves. So yeah, I think you have to wear those to sort of avoid touching anything or getting greasy marks on the LED bits. But these are like the daddies of the LED bulbs. They're huge. They've got a control pack thing on them, whatever that is, some sort of driver module. None of the others have that. And these are rated, I think, 20,000 lumens for the pair. Okay, so 10,000 each. It doesn't actually give a lumen figure on there. But I bought these quite a long time ago with the intention of upgrading my other old main beams to these. I just never got round to fitting them, and then I thought, you know what, I'll do a proper video series and we'll actually do some proper testing and measuring. Okay, so those are the NOV sights. Now you'll notice that these and these and these have a fan on the bottom, and these, the old ones, and annoyingly the Philips Ultimum Pros. What I really wanted was to put Ultimum Pros in main as well as dip, because I'm really pleased with them in the dip. They work brilliantly. Okay, a little bit of a tight fit, or so I thought. Actually did a video recently, where is it? I thought that they were pressing against the rear cover, so I cut a big hole in the rear cover, and then I realised they weren't actually pressing against the rear cover. So I've now got these kind of grommety things in the back of my headlights. Doesn't matter. It was an interesting exercise. But these bulbs here, they all have one thing in common, and that is that they've got this sort of fan here with like a flying lead. Okay, so you can't use the standard plug that goes on a normal headlight bulb. Okay, so these are different actually. These H11s have a sort of right angle plug. The H7s have, let's see if I can find one to show you. Here we go. So there is an element bulb, a normal H7 element bulb, and that's got the connection pins at the bottom there. And there is a sort of plug, and I'll show you in a bit when I take the headlight out, that plugs on and kind of clips in. Okay, so there's a kind of little spring clip thing, and that locks those in. You can't use that with LEDs. You have to sort of plug this into the connector that goes on here. Okay, so you unplug that and just sort of somehow stick it on the end here. Okay, that then means there's nothing to hold the bulb in. So that's where these plastic clips and things come in. However, nowadays you can buy bulbs that don't have, let's have a look here, that don't have the flying leads, and they don't need these clips. Okay, so they look just like normal bulbs, really. You compare those two, being very careful not to touch any of the glass or the LED, but the idea with these is that you can just swap them straight over, and you can use the factory clip, retaining clip connector at the back. Isn't that brilliant? So all of this plastic clippy thing may not be required, but because I want to plug these in and I want to be able to hold these in place while I measure them, I have been looking at these plastic clips. If I do end up running these, I will need them. Okay, so we've got those, and these Zethors here. Let's have a quick look here. So these are very, very similar. Out of these three, these are 8,000 each, and then we've got 10,000, and these are 10,000 lumens, and these we don't know. Couldn't find any figures for those, so we'll just have to measure them and find out. But when I was running these bulbs in my old headlights, I used these clips. Okay, so they're not 3D printed, they're injection molded, but I think they're, don't know, it might be some sort of high temperature plastic, but these were always a bit loose. They never really seemed to kind of clip in properly. I had to actually grind a bit of clearance there to clear the body of the bulb, so I was never very happy with those. I then went on eBay and bought some other ones which are really thin little flimsy things. A bit disappointed with these when I got them, really. They just don't seem to really work properly. Yeah, you kind of push it in. These are so thin they're just not really holding the bulb properly, and even though it's got this kind of springy bit here, it just didn't seem to want to kind of click in. It wouldn't lock in, and the bulb was just kind of coming back out. So I thought, right, I'll have a go at designing my own. Okay, so what I did was find the very early grey prototypes. I've been through about 14 design iterations here. So started off with something like that, and I've slowly fine-tuned the design, okay, through many slight little tweaks and changes, test fitting it, getting it absolutely right, and ended up with this one with the holes there. And the reason for those holes is there's some sort of peg things that stick up which were stopping these working, and they go into the holes, and then there's a little kind of bump bit there that locks onto there's a sort of plastic tab thing. Okay, I'll put up a picture now so you can see what I'm talking about. That needs to just sort of not lock, so we don't want it as like a barb, but we want it as just a little bump, just so that it kind of clicks in, okay, and stays put. We don't really want it shaking loose and coming out in your bulb, falling out of the headlight, okay. So the latest design that I've come up with is this one. That has the holes in the bottom there for the little peg pin things, and it's got the little bump there. And then this bit here it looks a bit rough, only because I didn't use any support when I printed it, but that is like a sort of grab handle, okay, because one of the problems with all of these other ones is they're very fiddly to get them in, especially when they're underneath the bulb. You just can't really kind of get a grip on them, and if you let go of them, they end up down here and up in here. And the other day I accidentally let go of one of the clips, and it took me about half an hour to try and fish it out of the headlight. So being able to keep hold of these while you insert them in is really important. I've actually redesigned this since then, and I've actually brought that up in a sort of loop so that you can kind of get a grip from above, okay, because when you're fitting that in the headlight, you're sort of reaching in and pushing that in with the bulb. Okay, so you really want something that you can keep hold of with the body of the bulb. So that will go kind of like, well, let's do this one here. So here's a photo of this being used, this very clip, or no, I think it was actually this one. It was this one, the slightly earlier prototype. Is a picture of that being used with the Phillips Altonen, and I actually fitted it in, and it clicked, and it worked. I then tweaked the design slightly more. I put this one in earlier, and it clicked in so hard that I had to get pliers to pull it back out again. So since then I've just reduced that bump slightly so that it's not locking quite so firmly in. You don't really want to have to be kind of getting tools to try and yank the headlight bulb back out again if you ever want to change it. Okay, so it's kind of just fine-tuning the design, getting it absolutely right. I may have wasted my effort with all of that, because I might end up running one of these. Okay, I don't know yet. I'd like to try and run these, mainly because they were the most expensive actually. These were about £100 for a pair. These were all sort of, well, these Osrams were about £70 a pair, and the rest were about £30 to £40 a pair. Okay, so don't have to run the most expensive ones, but yeah, I'll just run the ones that look best, really. I want maximum light output, and I want them to be the same colour, ideally, same light colour as the dip beam bulbs I've got. Okay, so it's whichever ones allow me to see furthest up the road ahead. Okay, so that's the kind of intro for this video done. There's two other things on the table here that I need to mention. My power supply, so I can actually power these up on the table, okay, which I'll do sort of while it's light, while I wait for it to get dark. I can actually just plug them in. We'll just see what they look like. and charger here. Now that's very important. Should really be doing all of this with the engine running for two reasons. One, headlights draw quite a lot of power, even LEDs, so you know I'm risking flattening my battery. But more importantly, the proper running brightness of these bulbs really it's at 14 volts, 14.2, 14.3 volts. Okay, LEDs are less sensitive to that. They sort of tend to come on at a certain voltage and then not get much brighter. The element bulbs are very sensitive to that. Okay, so rather than have the engine running and all that noise and fumes associated with that, I thought I would connect up my battery charger to the battery so that the sort of system voltage is kept topped up at sort of engine running levels, okay, at sort of 14 volts or whatever that thing kicks out. That will allow us to do a realistic test of the brightness that we would get if we were actually driving the car. Okay, so that's why that's out here. I've got an extension lead as well. I'll run that out shortly. Plug that in. I'm going to remove the headlight and we'll have a little look at the back of the headlight so you can see what I'm talking about with these clips and things. And I'm then going to one by one take these out of the boxes, plug them in to the bench power supply and just turn them on and just see how bright they are. It is sort of still daylight. The sun has just about set and it will be dark soon, but rather than me just do nothing and wait a few hours, I will plug some lights in and we'll just kind of get a feel for what we've got here and what they look like. Okay, and then when it's dark I'll actually get the light meter, we'll do the proper testing in the headlight. Okay, so I've plugged the battery charger in there. What's that reading? 13.4 volts. Okay, so that's just topping up the battery. I've got the bench power supply here, that's plugged in. I've just set that to 14 volts rather than 12 volts because the voltage when the car's actually running and driving is over 14 usually. It should be around 14. That's what the alternator kicks out, I think 14.3 or something like that. So we'll test these bulbs on the bench at 14 rather than 12. Before I actually start plugging any of these in, let me just talk about the UK vehicle lighting regulations. So recently the MOT rules were changed and MOT testers were told that if a car had been fitted with LED bulbs or the HID, the high intensity discharge xenon bulbs that didn't have those from the factory, then it was a fail. Okay, so even if it works and the beam pattern is correct and the light colour and brightness is all correct, it is still a fail. Why did they do this? It seems really silly. Why would they prevent people from running more efficient energy saving bulbs? Well, what was happening is people were fitting these kind of bulbs, the 20,000 lumen or 10,000 lumen bulbs in the dip beam. And what they ended up with were blindingly bright headlights. We're talking 10 times the standard headlight bulb's brightness. And this was causing accidents. Okay, so in my introductory video, I showed some clips that I found on YouTube of accidents caused by excessively bright headlights sort of oncoming, blinding a driver and then them having either an accident or a very near miss. So because of that, the rules were changed so that if you fit LED bulbs, it's a fail. Now there are two sort of exceptions, okay, to the regulations. The first one is a bit of a sneaky, unofficial exception, and that is that if the MOT tester can't see the bulb element and cannot see that it is an LED, and the beam pattern and the colour and the brightness are correct, then technically he or she cannot fail it, because they're not allowed to go taking things apart and pulling out headlights and having a look to see what type of bulb it is, and is it CE marked, and is it an element bulb like this. Okay, now I've got LED dip in here, Philips Altonen, so it's the H11 version of these, and they are amazing, absolutely fantastic. Not too bright, okay, so they are not dangerously bright, they're not going to blind other drivers. They're, I would say, not much brighter than the Halford's 200% and these ones here, okay, so these Lucas and Ring Pro, they're all kind of 3 times brightness, okay. Now the Philips are meant to be 350%, so 4,500 lumens. They give a nice crisp white light on the road ahead, and the beam pattern, the colour, they're not blue, they're nice white, pure white light, okay, and you cannot see the bulbs, okay. So I could be running the Xenon gas discharge HID type of bulb in there. That was an option with the projector lights on Freelander 2s. So if you do fit those, technically you should be alright with those as well, because it was a factory option. And the colour of the light is very, very similar. They're just a nice, bright, pure white, sort of icy white light. Not blue, but not cream, pink or yellow. Just nice, white light. So, in August, I am going to try and get my MOT done with these LEDs, and we'll see what happens. Okay? It's one of those things where you shouldn't do it, but you might get away with it. Of course, the alternative is that you just put some normal bulbs in for the day of the MOT. Of course, you could do that as well. Okay. The other exception, because I said there were 2, the other exception really is with main beam. Okay, so main beam, there are no limits on the brightness. Okay, so dip beam is very strict, and the regulations state that the colour, it's got to be white or yellow, and maximum 55 watts. Obviously that applies to old style lights. The figure of 1,650 lumens was mentioned by one of my viewers. I cannot find any proof of that and any mention of that in the regulations, but okay, fine. It shows that they are getting with the times a bit, and they're putting a lumen figure on it as well as the old-fashioned wattage figure. But dip beam really is what the MOT tester is going to be looking at. Main beam, here are the main beam regulations. Okay, so I'll talk you through the important bits. So main beam is what I'm going to be looking at tonight with these bulbs, and the regulations are fairly relaxed, okay? So what they are saying here is very, very roughly, they have to point forwards, okay, so alignment is to the front. They need to be marked with a British standard mark or an approval mark, so it's like a CE mark, European E or CE marking. And then the colour needs to be white or yellow, okay, so same as dip beam, the colour can be white or yellow. And then for wattage, here, it's no requirement. So vehicle first used after 1st of April 1986, no requirement. And intensity, no requirement. So the sky's the limit, I suppose, really, with that. We can have mega bright main beams, and that's fine, because main beams should only be used when there's no one else around and there's nobody driving towards you and you're not going to blind anyone. The really important thing with main beam is that any extra lights you fit, spotlights, light bars, roof light bars, anything like that, go off when you dip your lights, okay? And you do need a telltale light on the dashboard as well. But the most important thing is that when you dip your main headlights, your extra lights go off as well. And I often hear of people who are saying, oh, I'm fitting a light bar, I'm going to wire it to a separate switch. And I'm like, okay, so is that like an enabler switch on your main beam feed? No, a separate switch to the battery. No, please don't do that. Okay, please don't do that, because what's going to happen then is you're driving along a dark country lane, you've got your light bar on and you're on main beam, someone comes towards you, you dip your lights, but your light bar or spotlights are still on. You've then got to try and fumble around in the darkness trying to find this secret switch that you've installed somewhere. Okay, so that's just not going to work, and that will fail the MOT. You don't need an enabler switch, okay, so it is a bit of a myth that you have to have a sort of isolator switch on your spotlights or roof light bars or light bars on the grille. You don't have to have that. And I have had an instance once where the MOT tester was questioning it. He said, oh, it needs a switch, it's a fail if it hasn't got a switch. And another MOT tester at the garage said, no, it doesn't need a switch. And they passed the car. Okay, so just to be safe, just in case that ever happens again, or I get pulled over by a policeman who's sort of making things up as he goes along, I've put in an enabler switch there, okay, up in the interior light panel of the car. And that will prevent my roof light bar from coming on. It's also useful in the snow. Shouldn't really be using main beam in fog, but if you're using snow or hail or heavy rain, then there can be quite a lot of glare kind of coming towards the windscreen when you've got the lights on the roof, okay? So I have encountered a situation once where it was snowing. I needed the main beam to sort of see far ahead, but I was just getting blinded by this sort of star field effect of snow kind of just coming towards the windscreen, okay? So I turned off the roof light bar, kept the normal main beams on, and it was fine. It was much better. Okay, so various reasons why having a switch is a good idea. One other important thing to know with these headlights, and this is something that catches a lot of people out, they are not relay driven. The dip and the main on the Freelander 2 are driven by FETs, or field effect transistors. Okay, so they are electronic switches with no moving parts. Okay, so a FET is like a voltage controlled switch, voltage controlled transistor. Okay, so the computer sort of says, oh, you know, he's moved the stalk to the main beam position, fire up the FET and make the main beam bulbs come on. There's no relay, nothing clicks, okay? You won't hear anything click when you put the headlights, the main beam on. Why does that cause a problem? Well, if there ever is some sort of overload, and that can actually happen more often than you'd expect, when a bulb blows, if you're using an old element bulb like these, then when one of those blows, it can trip, can cause a bit of a current spike and trip out the sort of resettable circuit breaker circuit. Okay, so the FET has built into its driver circuitry a little sort of overload protection which trips out. It's a bit like a fuse box in your house, or, you know, sort of RCD trip type of thing. It trips. There's no switch. You can't sort of press the switch to reset it. It trips out, and you then think, oh, my headlights don't work. You change the bulb and they still don't work, and you check all the wiring and you think, what is going on here? Where's the relay? Why are my headlights not coming on? And all along, it's that circuit breaker needs to be reset. How do you reset it? You just disconnect the battery. Okay, so disconnect the battery for 30 seconds, reconnect it, and you should find then that your headlights work again. If they still don't work, you've either got a wiring fault or there's a fault with the driver circuitry, which I think is inside the ECU. It may be somewhere else in the car, but it's probably inside the ECU. Okay, so that would require further investigation. But usually just a battery reset. I had it once when I think it was an owl. It might have been a chicken, but I think it was an owl. Flew into my car. It sort of flew across the road and destroyed one of my headlights. And I changed the headlight, got a whole new headlight because it had smashed the plastic and that, and put the new headlight in with the new bulbs, and didn't work. The other headlight worked, but this one didn't. I thought, oh, I've not wired it up right, I've not plugged it in or something like that. I think, what's going on here? But what it was that resettable circuit breaker. It just needed the battery disconnecting, reconnected it, and it worked fine. Worth remembering that. Catches a lot of people out. They spend a lot of money on diagnostics and all that, and all they needed to do is disconnect the battery. Right, what I'm going to do now, I've got my power supply on, I've got my battery charger on, I'm going to get some of these bulbs out and I'm going to plug them in just on the table here, and we'll just see what they look like. I'll put the camcorder on the tripod and plug them in, and we'll just sort of see how bright they are. Now, I'm only going to be looking at these sort of headlight bulbs in this video, okay? So we'll be plugging in indicators and brake lights and fog lights and things like that in later videos in this series, okay? So those bulbs there, they can be moved off the table. They won't be used tonight. But the next video I'll look at brake lights, side lights, and then we'll do reverse lights, fog lights, and then we'll do indicators, and then finish up in part 6 with any other lights. Okay. Right, let's get the camcorder on the tripod. I'm still waiting for it to get dark. The pigeons are starting to roost in the tree up there, but it's still very light out here. Okay, so what I've done here is just arranged the bulbs that I want to test with the power supply on the bench here, okay. After I've done that, I will wait for it to get dark, and then we can actually fit them into the headlight on the car and measure the lumens coming out of the headlight. But just for now, I'm going to just power some of these up and we'll just see what they look like. So we've got the power supply here now. It doesn't have very long wires really. Let's see if we can put that in the middle. There we go. I've set it to 14 volts. We can actually see the current drawn as well. So let's start off with a ordinary old style element bulb. Okay, so this one is just a Philips bulb. It's not a Diamond Vision or a 200% or anything like that. Now, it doesn't matter which way around we connect this, because it's not an LED, it's not a diode. And there we go. Okay, so you can see how bright that is. It's still quite light out here. So, yeah, you know, you get the idea. That's drawing 4.26 amps. Okay, and that voltage has dropped off a bit. Let's see if we can... well, I won't wind that up, otherwise we risk possibly overloading the voltage on the LEDs, because they won't be drawing as much current as that. Now that is getting quite hot, so I'm going to disconnect that and put that down. So that gives you an idea of what a standard bulb looks like. I've got another standard bulb here. This one is 55 watt standard brightness, and this is an H11 type, okay? So let's connect that up. There we go. Very, very similar. This part is exactly the same. It's just the kind of connector that's right angle on the back. As you can see, even in this sort of evening light, it's not very bright. Okay, not really giving out much light. Now that should be, according to Google, about 700 to 1,200 lumens. I think we're probably going to be pushed to get more than 1,000 lumens out of these bulbs. These are probably more like sort of 800, okay, because they are bulk standard. I've then got this one here, okay, so this is another H11, similar to that, but this is the Lucas 200%. Now I'm not going to run up the Ring Pro, because when I tested these two they were identical. Okay, so this is a 200%, so 3 times the brightness of a standard, and let's power that up and just see if it really is 3 times. Yeah. Now that's drawing exactly the same current. Voltage has dropped just below 12 volt. That doesn't look like 3 times as bright to me. That looks very similar. Okay. Yeah. Maybe it would get a bit brighter when the voltage sort of increases up to around 14 volts. Okay, but that's yeah, disappointingly dim, really, that one. So now let's move on to some LEDs. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to run up the LED eBay specials that I have been running in my car for many years. Okay, now I need to look at this because it's got a plus and a minus. Okay, so that's an important thing with LEDs. Some LEDs now you can actually plug them in any way round, and they just if it's got a bridge rectifier or something built into them, and they work out the current and send it the right way through the actual LED diode elements. Okay, right. There we go. Now the voltage still on 14. It didn't move at all. 2.1 amps, so less than half the current that the other bulbs were drawing. And as you can see, that's fairly bright. It's got a little fan built into it, which is I can feel the vibrations of that running. Can't feel any air. I don't know which way the air blows, but that is noticeably brighter than the standard sort of element and even the 200% element bulbs. Okay, so that's quite bright, but this is quite a few years old, so it's been used lots, and all bulbs do get dimmer as they're used, including LEDs. And it's also sort of old technology now, really. I mean, the chemistry and the LED technology has really moved on a long way in the recent years. Okay, so it's just started to rain. I'm going to have to pack everything away and probably call this a day for today. I will come out here again later on if it stops raining. Failing that, I'll have to carry on tomorrow night. Okay, so the rain has now stopped and I've got everything back out again and tried to lay it out exactly as it was. I've eaten my dinner and it is now almost dark. Okay, so I'm just going to carry on testing these bulbs on the bench, but I don't want to spend too much time doing that because I want to actually fit them into the car. So let's carry on. So this one here, let's put a bit more light on there. Okay, so right. Okay, so I've just put my floodlight on and I'm going to just power up this one. So this is the Philips Ultium Pro 9000. And now it doesn't seem to have a plus and a minus, so let's just go 50-50. Oh, that's nice. Look at that. Oh, it's got a fan on the end. Right, there you go. That is what I'm already running in my dip beam. Okay, that is bright. Very bright. Okay. So I'm just going to quickly work my way through these. Okay, so the next ones, let's do, I'm going to try to build this up in order of brightness according to the stated lumens rating. Okay, so this one here is the Osram HL, whatever that is, high and low beam, it says there, off-road only. I'm just going to connect this one up. Now, does that actually have a fan? That, I don't think it has a fan, it's just got a heat sink at the bottom. Let's get that connected. Okay, there we go. That's pretty good. That is very bright, actually. I would say as bright as the Philips Holtonen. Okay, so there's no lumens rating that I could see for that. Let's put that there in case it's hot. But that's looking like around sort of the 4,000 to 5,000 lumens, just based on the fact that it's very similar to the Philips. So now I'm going to try the other Osram. So this is the XTR Extreme Bright Driving, or whatever it is. Okay, so this one does have a fan in the bottom, and it also has this kind of control module on it. So let's just connect that up. And now, does that have a plus and a minus? The other one had red and black wires. This one, yes, it does have a plus and a minus. Okay. Oof, oh blimey. That is bright. That is, I would say, quite a bit brighter than the others. Struggling to kind of see, you see, because it's so bright, it's just, I'm ending up with a big blob in my eyes. Right, okay, that is very bright. And let's now finish off the fan ones, okay? So, I don't know what's going on with these weird gloves, but I will do the right thing, put on the magician's gloves, okay, and let's see if these are magically bright. Right, let's have a little look there. Oh yeah, no, we've got a plus and a minus on that as well. Okay. Oof. Gee, whoa. Big fans on the bottom there. That is very bright. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to have to turn that off because it's just hurting my eyes. Okay, so these are rated 20,000 lumens for 2. Okay, so 10,000 lumens. That was what a 10,000 lumen bulb looked like, if you believe the Amazon listing. Moving on now, I'm going to try to power up these other ones. Okay, so let's do the Auxito and Couture. Okay, so Auxito, these are 8,000 each, and it has got a plus and a minus. Okay, so these don't have a fan, so these are literally a straight fit. Oh gee, that's pretty good. That's not as bright as the Nov sight, because I can actually hold it there and look at it and it's not hurting my eyes, but it's still very bright. So that's 8,000. Okay, and let's try one of these other ones. Catcher. Oh dear, struggling to see now. Can't see a plus and a minus on that one, so we're just going to go for it. Oof. Okay, so this is Couture. I would say that is exactly the same as the Auxito, really. It looks very, very similar. Okay, very similar. Does that have a little fan? I think that actually has a little fan built in. I could hear something running then. That's got a very small fan built in the bottom. The Auxitos don't, okay? But they look very similar brightness. And then finally, we've got the Zethors. Okay, now these are rated 20,000 for 2, so I'm expecting them to be as bright as the Nov sights. Let's just have a look here. Can't see any plus and minus. It doesn't have a fan, this one, which is interesting. At that brightness with no fan, it probably gets quite hot. Oh gee, whoa, that is very bright. Very, very bright. Okay, that is Pit Lane Kitty's here. Her eyes are glowing. Okay, Kitty, don't look at it. Okay, oh, I can feel something. I think there is a little fan built into this. I can feel it vibrating. Okay, actually getting quite warm. I'm glad I've got these heat-proof magician's gloves on. So, there you go. Those are bright. Those are very bright, and I do believe the 20,000 lumen stated figure there, because I think those were as bright as these. The brightest ones on the table, I reckon, are probably these. I've now got bright blob patches in my eyes. I can't see properly, but I'm going to try to now fit these to the car. Okay, so let me just get the camera off the tripod. These gloves are nice, actually. They're quite warm. I might keep them on. So, what have I done? Okay, headlight here. Disconnected the side light, disconnected the dip beam, just left the main beam connected. This headlight completely disconnected. And we've got the battery charger running. What's that giving? 13.7 volts. I'll be turning this light off. So when I turn on my headlights, and unfortunately I will need to put the ignition on, because if you just use the key fob, you don't get the main beam, really. Even if you leave the stalk in the main beam position, it doesn't work. Okay, so I'm just going to illuminate this main beam light, and I'm going to get the light meter on the tripod at a position where it's reading 1,550 lumens, which is what I believe these Halfords 200% are. Okay, once that is sort of in position and reading correctly, we've kind of calibrated it, and then I will carefully swap out the bulbs one by one, repeat kind of what I've just done here, swap these out, put them in one at a time, and see what the light meter actually reads. Now I will need to turn off my light here on the camera. I will need to turn off this light. I've got a head torch as well. It's not on at the moment, but I'll may need to put that on sort of red mode or something, just so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, it is now pretty dark out here. Pit Lane Kitty's out here somewhere. Her night vision is absolutely perfect, so she doesn't need a head torch. She's out here hunting. It's now rodent killing time, so if you hear any squeaks in the background, that's what's going on. Right, okay, let's get this light meter set up. I will need to hold the camera because the light meter is going to be on the tripod somehow, and I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible because I have been talking for a very long time, and I am aware that this video is now probably well over an hour long. Okay, so what I've done here is I put the light meter on the tripod. So you've got the yellow light meter here with a white kind of disc. That's pointing at the main beam light. The battery charger is kind of keeping things going. The ignition is on, and we are reading 1,529 lumens, or lux, but that will be lumens. Okay, so if I can just carefully adjust that, There you go. Oh, that's gone a bit high. 1,000. Kitty, no Kitty. She doesn't like the whistling noise. Right, 1,555. That's good enough for me. That's close enough to 1,550. Okay, and that is a Halford's 200%. Let's just put that off and just make sure that doesn't change anything. Turn off the head torch, just check that is, yeah, no, that's 1,530, yeah, it drops very slightly. Okay, so the head torch is not making much difference. So what I'm going to do now is carefully remove this without knocking this. I'm going to remove this and notice the distance here is about 1 metre, let's call it 97 centimetres. The maths worked. And I'm going to put in these one by one, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do these ones first, okay, because they don't need an adapter clip. Here's my latest designs of adapter clips. I'll talk more about those in a moment. I'm going to try these first because they're a straight swap, okay? Put them in and we'll just see what they look like, okay? Okay, so that is the Auxito, alright, so this is Auxito bulbs, 8,000 lumens each. Yeah, measuring 1,510, which is actually less than the Halford's bulbs. Okay, so much for 8,000 lumens. Okay, so this is the Catur 8,000 lumen. Oh, that is bright. God, that is bright. Oh, yeah, we've got 2,000. It was 2,050. I have to kind of catch it before it starts to drop. It does seem to drop off. I think that's just due to the battery voltage dropping. So that was giving a 2,050 lumen. Okay, so that is the new record holder. I don't want to run these for longer than I need to. Okay. Right, let's quickly swap again and put in the Zethors, which is 20,000 for two, so that's 10,000 each. Right, that is, oof, blimey. Whoa, that is bright. Okay, well, 2,100. Let's have a look there. Yeah, something's not quite right with the beam is a bit all over the place really. It's a very odd looking beam there. Yeah, so the beam pattern's not great with that one. It's just shining in all directions here. Okay, so that is what can happen with LED bulbs. The beam pattern isn't good. Okay, so that one is very bright, but a very weird beam pattern. So we're now into the bulbs which have a fan or a heatsink behind here. Okay, so you can't use the standard connector on the back of the bulbs like with these. So what I've done is I've developed my own clips. Okay, so the ones on eBay just didn't really seem to kind of work very well. Okay, so I've actually developed this clip here. This was after about 14 design iterations. It has some sort of slots there that locate where the standard connector locates. There's some holes there for the sort of pegs that are sticking up, and a kind of shaped bit here for the bulb. So that will sort of sit around the bulb like so. This bit here is just a handle. Okay, so that is just a kind of a thing to grab onto. What I've done actually is, let's just take off my magic gloves, because this is 3D printed and it's 3D printed that way up. That is a weak point, you see. That's just not going to work. That's going to break off due to the layers being horizontal. So what I've done is actually printed that piece in nylon, and let's just put a bit more light on here. So that piece is printed in nylon, which can take a much higher temperature, and there are some large grooves there. And then this piece here, also printed in nylon, has got these barbs on it, and the idea is that you just sort of push that down and then it kind of clicks in. Okay, so that handle is now really strong because it's printed this way and that piece is printed that way. So you can now get hold of this thing and actually put it in there. Being able to hold on to it is so important, because if you drop it, it'll end up sort of down inside the light somewhere. Okay, so I'm actually going to try these now and just see how well they work. I'll try them with this one, and yeah, that'll be the first time actually running these. I've tried a slightly earlier design with these bulbs and it did seem to fit. Okay, and these have a sort of positive click in. Okay, there's a little tiny bump in there, and that allows it to sort of click in, and then you pull on this handle to pull it back out. That's the idea. Right, let's give it a go. Okay, so that's the clip in, just so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so this handle here allows you to just unclip it back out again, and that goes in, and if you push it right in, it will click. Okay, I'm not going to click these ones in because I don't want to wear out that little kind of hook bit there, but I will push them in firmly. Okay, so let's get this one. So let's have a look at this. So this goes kind of like that. Okay, so you've got that tab bit there. This is where it's really difficult doing it with one hand. So I'm going to stop filming and then I will show you it in place. Right, it's in there. I'm not happy with the fit of that bulb. Okay, so that's this Osram one. It just doesn't want to locate in, and it's not my clips. Without the clip, it still doesn't want to locate, and it's kind of at a bit of an angle. I don't know what it is. The sort of, yeah, you see what I'm talking about there. That fan body isn't in line with this tab bit here, and that was causing all sorts of problems. Okay, and it's led to the bulb being a bit slightly rotated in the bulb holder. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, yeah, you see what's going on here. It's giving a very high beam. Most of it's high up on the hedge there, which is probably going to mean that the light meter's then in the wrong place. Yeah, we've got 519 lumens, which isn't right. Let's just see if I can waggle that a bit. No, you see what it's doing? It's kind of like changing I can't get that beam to shine downwards. That's because the bulb's not locating right. Okay, so those ones, yeah, 694. They're fairly bright, but they're not as bright as these other ones. Okay, and it may be just the bulb. It may be that it's just not located properly and it's not reflecting right. So those Osram ones, not much good. So what I'm going to do now is try the other Osrams and hope that they fit better. Okay, so I'm going to try these XTRs and just see if they look sort of slimmer fan. Yeah, they just look like they're going to fit a bit better, but they've got this kind of bulky control thing here, which is not very nice. So I'm going to get those put in. We'll just see if they're any different. Okay, so the XTRs are in there. There was a problem with those as well. Okay, so the cable exits the light right where my clip has got all this kind of thing here. So if I didn't have that handle on there and this back bit, then the cable could come out there. It just was fouling it and stopping it from locating. So I've managed to kind of get it in there, located in, and then use that sort of power pack thing to kind of just press against the back to hold it in place. Okay, so the little tab, wherever it is located, unlike these ones that just didn't want to locate. It is there, but it's still, I think that's still rotated slightly, you know, slightly rotated. Okay, so right, let's see what the light meter gives us. Right, well, that's a nice beam. That's a good bright beam. Okay, that is good. Much better than the other ones. Right, what have we got? Oh my god. Yeah. Oh, 607, but it's on the times 10 range. Oh, that's more like it. 6,000 lumens. 6,000 lumens. Okay, so that's the XTRs. Okay. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, that's good. That is bright, nice bright beam. You can see the shadow of the thing there, so you can see that it's dead in line with that, and where it is sort of on the hedge there is exactly where you'd want it, not over here somewhere or up there. Okay, so that's good. I like those. That's nice. Only issue is that wire sticking out in the wrong place. Right. Okay. Moving on now to the let's do the Philips Alton Pros now, which is what I'm running on the dip beam. So I'm going to swap in with these, and then the final one will be the Big Daddy Nov sights. Okay, so let's just pop this in and just see. Yeah, that cable exits at the side. That may present its own challenges because there is actually a sort of wall bit here, and that wire is going to be hard against it, but let's see how we get on. See if I can get that one put in. Okay, so that is the Philips Alton Pro, and that's in there nice and straight. Okay, not at an angle like these ones. Nice and straight, and let's power that up, and I'm expecting good results out of this, although probably not quite as bright as the other one. I'm expecting about 5,000 lumens. See how we get on. Oh, I'll tell you something, that's a very narrow beam. Look at that. The beam angle is a real bright circle and then not a lot at the side of it. So those are like almost like sort of spotlights. Perfect for main beam. Okay, because I've got the light bar, which is a sort of combo flood spot, but it tends to be a floodlight really. And these we've got, okay, so 3684, that's pretty stable, dropping slightly. So yeah, 3,700 lumens. Okay, I was expecting about 4,000 to 5,000. Maybe when the battery voltage sort of is a bit higher, might possibly be a little bit more, but that's, yeah, okay, not quite as much as I was expecting, but I like the beam pattern. That is good. That's a very narrow, bright beam pattern. The colour is good, nice white, not blue, just a pure white, really, absolute pure white. Right, okay. Those are very, very nice bulbs, those Philips bulbs. Right, we've got one more to try now. One more, and that is the big one. I didn't even know if these are going to physically fit, they're huge. So let me have a look and see. Okay, right, they're in there. Now, these, unfortunately, it's in and it's located. They suffered the same problem as these with the wire coming out right where the clip needs to be. Okay, so they're in there. Let's power these up and see what we are getting. Whoa, those are bright. They are very, very bright. A massive, great, quite a wide spot. Well, almost a flood beam there, and we've got 4,400 lumens. Okay, so it's 440 on the times 10. Those are very bright. I just looking at them, quite a wide beam as well. I think those are the brightest ones so far. The thing here is the size of the light beam. It's very wide angle. Okay, so if you do want sort of wide angle main beam, these may be the ones to go for, these NOV sights. But the beam on the Philips was much narrower, a similar lumens, okay, similar amount of light, but in a narrower beam. So kind of take your pick really on those. Depends sort of if you've got additional spotlights or light bars or whatever. Okay, if you haven't got any of those, you're probably better off going for the wider beam. But if you've already got roof light bars and things like that, then you may want a narrow main beam. Okay, right, I'm going to turn this off now before it flattens the battery totally. Okay, so here we are the next day, and I'm out here in the daylight, and I've laid out these 7 bulb types on the table, and I'm now going to try to put them into some sort of order rated worst to best. This will be my own personal opinion based on everything we've seen in this video, the results of the testing, how well they work, how easily they were to fit, the brightness, the colour, the beam pattern and everything else. So in 7th place I am putting these Osram HLs. Okay, so those are not very bright, only got 694 lumens reading. Now I'm sure they do give out more than that, but the beam pattern was so erratic because they didn't fit properly. This piece here was kind of catching on the back of the sort of bulb holder. Now these would actually locate without using my clips, but with the clip there was just not enough room to kind of maneuver the bulb in. Okay, so it was kind of catching here and preventing it sort of locating in. These are designed for high and low beam, so that may be why they're not very bright, although it does say off-road only. It's a little bit confusing. Okay, so based on the beam pattern and the fact that they were difficult to fit, those are in 7th place. Next, in 6th place, are these, the Auxitos. Okay, so these are nice bulbs, they look quite nice. You don't need a clip. They don't have a fan built in, which suggests that they're not that powerful and they don't actually get that hot. These came up pretty poor on light output. They're meant to be 8,000 lumens according to the listing, but I only measured 1,510. And interestingly, if you scroll down the listing a bit further, it actually says 2,000 lumens. So which is it? Is it 8,000? Is it 2,000? It's a bit misleading. Okay, so that's why those are not scoring very well. Those are in 6th place. Next I've got the Zethors. Okay, now these were very bright, these were nice. Again, they fit in, they fit in without a clip. I don't think they have a fan in there, it's just a sort of circuit in the bottom there. But they were quite nice. I measured 2,100 lumens with those, but again the listing is misleading. It says 10,000 lumens per bulb at the top of the listing, and then when you scroll down it says 2,000. So what's going on here? Why are they giving two different figures here? It just sort of makes me think that they're putting a really high figure to sort of make you kind of click into it, and then when you actually get down to the specification it's not what you were expecting. So that's that's no good. That's not on. Okay, so those and those, I'm marking them down for that. Next on the list are these, the Couture. These are nice. They've got, I think, a little tiny fan built in the bottom there, and they're just nice looking bells. Very, very similar to the Zephyrs. Yeah, very similar. But these gave a nice beam pattern. I mean, the listing says 8,000. I was only getting 2,050, but the beam pattern was nice. Okay, these ones were quite high in the air. These were just sort of narrow, straightforward beam, which is what you need. Next, in third place, I'm putting these. Okay, these are very big, powerful, bright bulbs. Okay, the issue with these really is they're just huge. Okay, so it makes it almost impossible to use most of the clips available. I don't think my clips will actually fit with these. They might do just about. Yeah, the fan unit is so large, it's just causing problems. And then on top of that, you've got this big power pack thing here, this kind of control module. The whole thing, I mean, they're heavy. They are big, heavy bulbs. The light output was good, okay, but very wide beam. Okay, not really what you want for main beam. Main beam, you want a sort of narrow, sort of spotlight beam, not a flood beam. Okay, you get a flood beam from your dips. Okay, so these fell down on physical size and beam pattern. Brightness though was pretty good, 4,400 lumens, meant to be 10,000, but you know that's not bad. That's not bad. Okay. Next, in second place, I'm putting these Osram XTRs. Okay, I like these. They're compact and they're incredibly bright. These were the brightest bulbs of all of them. 6,070 lumens, a nice narrow beam, real narrow bright spotlight beam with a real sort of nice defined edge to it. Really, really good. These I put in second place because they've got this power pack thing here, which is just makes it a little bit bulky fitting them. But apart from that, they fitted in absolutely perfectly. And then in first place, I've got the Philips Ultinon Pro 9100. These I just really, really like. The light output is great. 3,684 lumens, not quite as bright as the extreme ones, but a nice narrow defined beam. And the clip also works well. Okay, so you can actually, interestingly, you can actually unclip that. Okay, so that black bit is like a sort of bayonet fit. That actually comes off, and you can then buy some alternative clips. And one of them is sort of like a cross between this and that. So it'll actually go around there, but fit like these do. So I'm going to get some of those and I'm going to try them, and I'll do that sort of as a kind of bonus video at some point in the future. Okay, but these are good even without the special clip. You can just use these. Actually, that clips on there quite nicely. That fits perfectly around there. Okay, and likewise, actually the clip actually works really well on these here. When I first fitted these, I had an issue with the wire, but I then found that, like these, this comes off. Okay, so you just rotate it, and it actually, you can put it on 180 degrees out. Okay, some of them allow you to put it sort of 90 degrees. I think it were these. Well, this one allows 90 degree rotation. These two were 180. Okay, this one here looks like it comes off, but only goes in one place. So that's that. These are the winners. These are what I'm going to be fitting. And what I will do now is just put up a series of photos showing what the beam actually looks like. Okay, so what I did is I fitted each bulb one at a time in the car, sort of in the dark, and I turned the car around and I kind of shone it down there. Now I needed to be a bit careful. I wasn't sort of blinding the neighbours down that end, really, because some of these are very, very bright. But I just put the main beam on for a very short time, took a photo and turned it off, okay, and then switched to another bulb and put it on, and I did that over several nights. And I will put up the results now, and I will also put some text at the bottom to show what the current drain was, because when I had the power supply out here, I did actually sort of start off kind of reading out the current that it was drawing, but then sort of promptly kind of forgot to make a note of that. So I've gone back and I've measured the current for each of these, and if we know the current, we can then work out the wattage as well, which is useful to know. Okay, so I'll put up now at the end of the video, as this sort of end, sort of outro to the video, I will put up now the pictures of this in the dark with the current at the bottom. And what you need to keep an eye on is that tree there. There's a sort of tree stump there with ivy on it. Okay, so that will give you an idea of how high up the beams are, whether they're shining on the bottom or up in the tree, or just sort of nice and narrow, lighting up that silver car there. Okay, that is it. That is the end of LED series part 2. Pit Lane Kitty and I have had a lot of fun making this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching it, and I hope that was useful. We've got 4 more videos to make in this series. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.